That's like asking what is my favorite song. I don't really have an answer. You know, in songwriting circles, in the circles of people where I would sometimes hang out, a lot of times we would say, "What are you listening to these days?" And I'll tell you, the most common answer is the Beatles. Sorry about that. Who is my favorite songwriter? Of course, Bob Dylan. In my brain, Bob Dylan is reinvented every so often. I learn to appreciate him more. Likewise with the Beatles. Even though I've heard some of those songs thousands of times, I hear something new. I get a new feeling sometimes. The songs from when I was growing up are, of course, some of my favorite songs, as happens in everybody. You know, who are the favorite songs in your life? And most people will go back to when they were young and vibrant, when they were 17, 18 years of age. Who did I love back then? That's typically who you love today, if the songs indeed were good. And so I guess the answer really is, it depends on my mood, it depends on what I'm doing. Today's favorite artist will change tomorrow and maybe come back a few months later. Well, I don't, music and the brain fit into my songwriting because I'm using my brain to write a song, and I'm aware of all the parts of my brain that play a role. And music stimulates all of the parts of the brain. It's the only thing that stimulates all the parts of the brain. And I'm very aware, acutely aware, that when I'm writing, all the parts of my brain are writing this song. My memories, my emotions, my my mathematical concepts, my social outlook, my viewpoints, and whatever topics you want to mention. But in doing my rubbing elbows, as I called it, period where I was with a lot of musicians, a lot of our conversations were about the brain, because that's a health and fitness side of me that I already got into. I'm a brain guy, and I like talking about the brain. I like talking about how we can have a better brain. And somewhere along the way, I started talking about music and the brain, and it became a workshop. It became a lecture, and it became something that I sometimes do when I play a regular gig. I'll just mention how the brain responds to songwriting, or I'll mention, here's a song I wrote because I was coming back from a workout and I saw a sign that said Dead End Road, and my brain all of a sudden had this song flow out, Living on a Dead End Road, one of my favorite songs. But I think people want to know how they could have a better brain, and one of the answers to that question is you could have a better brain by listening to music. You can have an even better brain by participating in music. So writing music, playing music, watching a music video, dancing to music. And those therapeutic components of music are very, very important for everybody. That's a good question. That's a common question. There's a lot of ways of asking it, and the quick answer is no, you don't have to be sad to write a sad song. I think the image of songwriters is that they're off in this dark corner. They're in their basement and they're struggling with something, like the movie Amadeus. At the end, Mozart was, he was the darkest. He was pale, and he was, it wasn't a good time for him. But no, I've written some of the saddest songs when I've been happy. I'm usually happy. So I've written happy songs when I'm happy, and I've written some really sad, serious social commentary songs about shooting children. A very sad situation. I've written those when I've been happy. I think what most, I think what we need to do most is have a healthy brain, and by having a healthy brain, we'll write a really good song. Whether it's happy or sad is almost irrelevant. The real question is, how do drugs affect the brain? And really it's all about changing our mind. And we don't have to be under the influence of drugs to change our mind. There's some really amazing, very creative people in the music world who have never taken drugs. It's very individual. That's another very important component. But I'll give you some examples from my perspective, my experience. One of them is caffeine, a very common drug. What does caffeine do to my brain? Well, of course, it speeds it up. And for me, I learn a lot of my new songs from a playing standpoint, from a technical standpoint. I learn how to play, and when I write a new song, it's often accompanied by something I've never played before, and therefore I have to learn the technical part of the song. And when I'm on caffeine, that's easier to do, because when you're on caffeine, you learn better. Your brain is more receptive to things. We try things that we might not try when we're not under the influence of caffeine in some cases. Another example is alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. That doesn't mean we become depressed, but alcohol allows us to be more social. It allows us to be, I'm relatively asocial unless I'm in front of a camera or a group of people playing or lecturing. But alcohol allows us to open up. And so I typically have a glass of wine, or maybe a half a glass of wine before I perform, because I think it helps me be relaxed and open up to the audience better. And sometimes when I'm practicing a new song, or I'm having trouble finding that transition from the verse to the chorus, I might think, I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to have a glass of wine, and I'll sit there and sip the wine and think about what I'm trying to do, and often the answer will come to me without even realizing it. To me, heavy lyrics are important. Heavy lyrics, by definition, are you listen to them and you evoke this intense emotional image in your mind, or a feeling. And in many cases, heavy lyrics are lyrics that, when you listen to the song over and over, you realize there's different meanings in these lyrics, even though the lyrics are the same every time you listen, obviously. But all of a sudden, oh, this has a double meaning or a triple meaning. Those are heavy lyrics. But I think what people think of as heavy lyrics are songs of social injustice, for example. I want to write about the things that happen in society that we need to change. I want to make people aware of things that they may not be aware of. I'm like a newspaper writing about things that are happening and people may not be aware, and all of a sudden they are, and they say, wow, we need to do something about that. That's what folk music is. Folk music is the music of the folks, and folk music always tells a story. My songs are very storytelling-like. I want to tell you the story of John and Joe. And it's a very intense story. It's a very sad story, but it's a very important story. It's a story of social injustice. They're very heavy lyrics, and I enjoy those. I enjoyed them growing up. Folk music was a big influence on me. I heard folk music from the very beginning when I was probably, I'm guessing 8 or 9 years of age. And as I got, into the music of the later 50s, things started clicking in my head, and that influence, I think, has stuck with me today. That's an interesting question. It's a good question. We all have secrets. I've always been fascinated by secrets. We all have secrets, despite our relationship with our mothers and our siblings and our spouses and friends and best friends and the bestest of all we still have secrets. And I was thinking about this one day, and I wrote a song called A History of Secrets. So many of my secrets are in my songs. And if you want to know my secrets, you need to listen to my songs, because there's a lot of very interesting secrets there. I was, again, lucky enough to learn early in my songwriting process from Rick Rubin, who learned from George Martin of the Beatles that when you write a song, when you write the introduction, the guitar licks, the piano licks, the lyrical components, the transitions into the bridge, etc., etc., you never write those again. You only get one chance to write the song. And when you write it, you're done with all of those musical components, and you can never repeat it.